stories about how we overcame past trauma and where we are now. Welcome to the Queens Talk, Queens. Hello, everybody. I am Leslie from Brown Girls Embrace, and welcome to the Queens Talk. Here we talk to women who are on their self-love journey and why they started their journey and why self-love is beneficial. Tonight we have Marita. She's going to talk to us about being a self-love coach, being an educator, talking about her mental health and why has she started her self-love journey and how she's seen the benefits and self-love, what it has done for others. So let me go ahead and get Marita into the room. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, Leslie. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining me tonight. So let's go ahead and jump into this conversation. And we're going to first introduce yourself. So like, what's your name and where you're from?
Awesome. Okay, I am Marita Robbins. I live in Northwest Louisiana, and you can find me all over social media with the handle that you see below at Marita Robbins.
Yes. Okay, so the first question I'm gonna ask is, why did you start your brand after you left? Because I know you was a teacher before. Do you want to talk about the teacher situation before we jump into the branding after that?
Yeah, we can talk about being a teacher first.
Okay.
Well, I finished high school in 2002, before the 20s, So in 2002, I went to college to become an educator. I was a certified English teacher, graduated college, went back to my alma mater and taught high school. I was there for 15 years. I taught English to high school students. I also earned my master's in education with a focus in library science. So I was the school librarian as well as at that school for about 5 years. So in total, 15 years in education.
Nice. Okay, so tell us how did you start with your brand and becoming a self-love coach and an advocate and where you are now?
Okay, so I had the idea to become a coach in 2012, 2013, but I just kind of put it in the back of my mind. You know how sometimes you have an idea, you have a thought, but you think, is it realistic? Can I actually do that? How does that look? How would that look in my life? How does that work? I had more questions than answers at that point, and to be honest, I had, a pretty solid gig as an educator, and I wasn't at the point where I was ready to let that go. Um, but fast forward into 2022, so around this time last year, I became ill and I was not able to return to my job. I was on medical leave for the remainder of the school year. And after resigning, I knew I wanted to go ahead and take that leap of faith, go ahead and launch my self care coaching business. I had started working with so many women, as a teacher and as an independent beauty consultant. And I realized that a lot of people struggled with confidence. And they
Mm-hmm.
struggled with confidence because of not enough self love. I'm not going to say they didn't have any, but they needed just a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found is that as I would hold a beauty experience or a self care session with a person or her and a group of her friends, that at the end, they felt more beautiful. They felt more comfortable in their skin because they were learning how to take care of it. They felt more valuable, I guess I should say. They felt like they were the total package because what was on the inside had manifested to the outside within our time together within that hour. It's like when you go to the beauty salon, you come in one way, and when you walk out, you are turning heads,
Yes.
honey. So that same experience, I got to see it over and over and over again. And when the pandemic started in 2020, where things really started to be impacted, I had the opportunity to work with over 100 women in just a few months, virtually, helping them to transform, helping them to um, embrace who they are and work on the things that they wanted to work on about their appearance. Because when you are focused on how you look, you
Hmm.
don't show up as your highest self. You don't play full out. You're too focused on, can they see these blemishes? Can they
Hmm.
see the discoloration?
Right.
Can they tell that I have this going on or that going on? But when you fix it and take care of it, you're able to pour into those other people. And so I got a chance to work with people in that way, and that allowed me to realize that I was already a self-care coach.
Mm.
I was just using the vehicle of those beauty products to do it. And in 2022, so going back to last year, I decided to expand what I could offer other women, helping them work on their confidence and mindset and work on themselves in ways that allow them to show up more whole, to help them to process the things that they've experienced so that they don't stop them now or in the future.
That is so beautiful. I love that because you're right. Like if we are so like I know for myself, if we're wearing heels, we want to make sure we're walking right in the heels. That is not too high.
Yes.
The dress is not too high. But if we're okay and confident with what's going on the inside, then we won't be worried about what the outer appearance is. And you'll be more confident. You'll be able to embrace it. I know a couple of months ago, I was at a family get together, and
Uh-huh.
because I started the self love journey, and you know, Brown Girls Embrace the brand, just about embracing everything about me and not being insecure. One of my family was saying like, "You look stress free," and I was like, "It's showing." But before I was looking angry, I was looking
Wow.
sad, and it looked like it was a lot on my mind. Like I'm one of those people that I wear my heart on my sleeve, and you can tell what I'm feeling because my facial expressions. But I see the benefits. Yeah, I see the benefits of really just being okay with yourself and not letting your own insecurities um, overtake who you are. So that's
Right.
beautiful.
And with that, to that note, sometimes we pick up on insecurities of people around us and we embody them. For
Mm,
example, someone may say something about a certain body shape or body type or body
mhm.
size. And if our body looks like that, then we feel offended or we feel hurt or we don't feel as attractive, so to speak. Or if they say something positive about it and we don't have it, and now we're like, well, I'm supposed to look like that because that's what's getting the attention. That's what's getting the looks. And that's just somebody's opinion,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so sometimes we can start to take ownership of, but how do I actually feel about my body? How do I actually feel about the skin I'm in? And I
Mhm.
like to borrow a quote from someone else. She is a fabulous stylist and image coach. She works with people on their personal brand. Her
Mhm.
name is Shay Cunningham, Slay by Shay. And one thing she says is you got to have a crush on your body.
Oh wow, I like that.
Yeah. So when you have a crush on you, nobody can stop you from loving you or embracing you. And
Yeah, I agree.
that's really a part of, you know, taking on that self-love, learning to realize that your love, your value, and your worth is not rooted in other people's opinions because it starts with self.
Yes, and I agree. Oh, I think she's in the room. Shay Cunningham. I think
Yes,
she's.
she's here. Oh my goodness. Hey.
And you know her.
Yes, I know her as well. How are you?
Okay.
Oh
Good.
wow.
I
Okay.
just started
Awesome.
seeing
So
all
glad.
the comments and everything. Thanks everybody for joining. I just pressed over to the comments. I'm sorry, but thanks for joining us, everybody. But yeah, it's like the saying goes: if you don't love yourself, who will? So just like you said, if you get into a marriage, and you want somebody to love you the way that you never been loved before. But if you don't love yourself, how can he love you? Or how can your spouse love you? So you when you go into relationships, you can't look for people to validate you. You have to validate yourself first. And that's what helps your relationship to grow, to stay in a relationship, to keep it prosperous. Who wants to be in a toxic relationship? It's because this person gets toxic, they have their own insecurities because they don't love who they are.
Right.
That's why you see a lot of divorces and things like that because somebody didn't take time to realize their self-worth and they was always looking for validation.
Right. And that's the thing too. We have to fill our cups up first. and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't come from other people pouring into us. It
Yeah.
doesn't. It doesn't start there. We should fill our cups up first, and then whatever other people add, that's extra. We can
Yeah.
bless people with the overflow, but we have to start it. We have to begin first. And to that point of what you were saying a moment ago, we in turn teach others how to treat us by how we love and treat ourselves.
Exactly. You got to
So we
gain that.
set the standard. We
Yeah.
set the standard right out the gate.
Exactly. When I'm in therapy, um, one of the things she would tell me is you have to treat yourself the way you want other people to treat you. So if I don't treat myself right, how can I expect that from others? So I do have to set boundaries because
Mhm.
hey, I don't like that. That's not the what you said didn't make me feel good. So you have to let people know these are my boundaries and don't ask people permission. Is it okay to set these boundaries? Because not everybody's gonna like your boundaries.
Right.
You
And,
know,
and,
so
and I've spoken with so many people about that. I even did a workshop on it, and there's an ebook I'm launching soon to deal with it too. Because as women, sometimes we struggle with that. We're taught to be self-sacrificing, to put others' needs ahead of our own. If a mother chooses to do something that she enjoys, then people say, "Well, now she's neglecting her kids, and that's a bad mom." No,
yeah,
it's not. She has to put on her own oxygen mask before she can go around and save other folks.
exactly.
Same with us. So
Yeah.
we have to realize that with our boundaries, we're showing people how to interact with us, and it's our job to set them and enforce them and communicate them. They, even though they may not accept them or want to hear them or agree with them, because the people who benefit from you not having boundaries will be most offended when you do.
Oh wow, that was powerful. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah. And then in the beginning journeys of me, having to say no, I can't make it or I can't do this, or even speaking up for myself if something feels uncomfortable, I have to learn that, like I said before, they're not gonna like it, but that doesn't mean that you're a bad person because they don't like your boundaries. That
Right.
means that you have to do what you have to do to take care, protect your mental space. And not everybody realizes that because I deal with anxiety and depression that I have to there's certain things that I have to do to protect my peace of mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shay says, validate yourself first. Let me see. Validate yourself first. That's love. Yes, you do have to validate
Yes.
yourself first because
Me too.
I mean you have to go to bed at your night with your thoughts. So if you can't sleep at night, they don't care. They got their sleep. So you want to make sure that you get your sleep so you can be function and ready to go and be the best version of yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there are so many different areas in our lives where we can incorporate boundaries. It could be with things we do for others. It could be um, time, money, other resources, and just realizing where do we need to set and stick to those boundaries. And we even have to set boundaries with ourselves. I know with myself,
Exactly.
it could be easy to get on my phone and just go down the rabbit hole on social media. And before I know it, I've spent time there that I didn't really intend to spend there. So we have to set boundaries with ourselves and figure out, if I'm going to become better at something, if I'm going to be great in other areas, what are some things that I need to change, and how am I going to be accountable to that? With
Mhm.
different things I've done in my life and in business ventures, I've had an accountability partner, but at the end of the day, I have to ultimately be accountable to myself.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just like if you're on a diet or if you have to do, you have to wake up at a certain time of the day. Like you
Mhm.
have to be accountable. Like, okay, get up at 5 to start working out or meal prep or whatever. Like
Yeah.
you can have those accountability partners and be in a group message, but at the end of the day, it's between you and yourself and God. Like, you gotta really do. And that's the message that I wanted to spread so much is women, we can be so negative and nasty with each other because we lack in self love and care. I talk about reality shows all the time and I
Oh,
always say that if they would just love themselves, if they made time for themselves and see the value of themselves, they wouldn't want to fight everybody. They wouldn't have
yeah.
so many complaints and be against everybody the whole time.
And sadly, that's the type of entertainment that sells or to help. Oh, you're so welcome, Leanne.
Mhm.
I want to call you by another name, but I know exactly who you are.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm glad I was able to have that conversation with you.
Mhm.
But if those shows would have a different type of message, where okay, these women are not catty, they're not negatively competitive, because there are instances where competition could be a good thing.
Mhm.
But sadly, the negativity is what's popular and what sells. People want to see that type of drama,
Mhm.
so we have to figure out, if we are viewing that as entertainment, what is that really saying about us? And if those are the type of relationships that we have with other people in our real lives, then what can we do to um, make the needed changes? Is it
Yeah.
something with those people, or is it something within us personally?
Yeah. And I like what you said, that is like, if we are watching these things, we allowing our eyes to watch these things and to take in. It's just like when you read, you're constantly meditating and you're feeding your mind and your soul with the things that you're reading because you see it. Same thing when we watch stuff. We're feeding our souls, and it kind of changes our process of thinking and all that stuff like that. So when social media was around me more during the pandemic, I
Yeah.
noticed, hey, there's more empowerment groups. Hey, there's more self-love groups. And that was just a beautiful space to be in. It's just like, instead of us fighting each other, we're empowering each other. So can you talk more about your community and the events and the workshops you have had yourself, and you've seen the difference between how women interact with each other and the love that they give to each other and themselves?
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna
So
my board.
sometimes the communities that I'm a part of are facilitated by me, and sometimes they're facilitated by others. But what I find is that like attracts like.
Hmm.
People who are goal oriented, who are working on improving who they are from the inside out. Sometimes we start with the outside, but we end up getting to that inside, because the outside is surface level. Yeah, we can fix that. But then doing the internal work. And I often find that women want to learn how to do that inner work, but we need
Mhm.
guidance. We need mentors. We need people who've gone before us, who've done it, and then they're reaching back and showing us the way. And sometimes, if you're hyper independent, like I'm a recovering hyper independent person, it can be easy to, oh, I'll just figure it out. I'll do this myself. But when we create that community, and when we get around other people, even if it's just one other person who's working on improving or doing something different, because others in our lives, they don't understand it. They don't want to know why we want to do the different thing. It's worked for so many years or so many generations. So they're looking at us like, you want to change it? What's wrong with you? But so you have to have somebody in your corner saying, you know what, we're changing, we're doing this together. And when you have that type of support in your life, it can be easier to deal with those other challenges, and just to be able to go to a sister or a girlfriend, even if you aren't related biologically, but you have that connection where you know that we have each other, we can
Mhm.
support one another. And during the pandemic, I was able to interact with people coast to coast,
Mhm.
and on occasion internationally. Um, but just realizing that, because we got so used to being in one another's space before the pandemic, that when
Mhm.
the pandemic came, it altered all of that. And there were instances where physical interaction was limited or was non existent. So we craved community and support and friendship and communication more often than at any other point in our lives.
Mhm.
Isolation is deadly, and you cannot go it alone. You don't have to be a one woman show. So that's what
Mhm.
I appreciate about the communities that I've been a part of and the groups that I've been a part of, as well as those that I get to create. On the 28th of this month of January 2023, because I know people will be watching the replay, but
Mhm.
on the 28th of January 2023 at 2 o'clock Central until 4 o'clock Central, I'm hosting a free virtual self love summit. And this summit will be facilitated by myself. via Zoom. I have other coaches and speakers coming in, and we're going to talk about our self love journeys, how we were able to incorporate self love in our lives because January is self love month. And with this being a new year and a new month, it's important for us as women to reflect and think about the habits and patterns and relationships that we have and how we want to nurture ourselves more so that we can continue to be the women that we aspire to be. In the earlier stages of our lives, sometimes we may receive messages from others around us who um, rub off on us and tell us that we can't do or shouldn't do or what have you. But when we get to be adults, we also have to go about the work of reparenting ourselves.
Exactly.
And with this self love summit, I want people to walk away with knowledge and tools and resources that they can use to show themselves the love that they want to receive from themselves and teach those in their lives how to do the same thing. As a woman, we have so much influence and power because of the relationships we have, because of the positions in our families, the positions in our communities and organizations and our employment and all of that. So when we choose to set the bar and
Hmm.
then show other people the standard, we can bring about so much change by empowering ourselves.
Yeah, this event sounds like it's going to be so lovely. And to go back to what you said previously, um, when during the pandemic, I know for myself, it was time of isolation, and I had to reevaluate my circle, my
Mhm.
surroundings. Who was I hanging out with? Why were those people attracted to me? Why was I attracted to them? What were we doing that was beneficial for our lives? And when I had time to isolate and be by myself, that's when I started the self love community. And then for a long time, I didn't want to, because this was so precious to me. This self love community was so precious to me. It was just like a fresher breath air. Everybody was just like, pumping each other up, women empowerment. And I've never seen it like this ever until
Yeah.
the pandemic. So I kept it like as a hidden gem because
Mhm.
I didn't want somebody to take the breath of fresh air away from me. But now people are, it's been like 2 years now. It's going to 3 years. It's been like 3 years now. And I'm really saying that, okay, people are liking the new Leslie, that I'm being more positive and I'm being vulnerable. And I'm saying, brown girls embrace. So you got this, brown girls, because sometimes that's all we need to hear. I know you're into, everybody likes Tabitha Brown.
Yes.
And when everybody says
Yes.
hello there, we just like, you doing all right or whatever. It's just like she sounds genuine, and it makes you kind of be calm. It's just like a
It
fresh,
does.
because this world is so hectic, and do we have time to just be calm, you know, and just sit and be happy with ourselves instead of thinking about all the problems that we had going on in our life? So,
Yeah. And there are some women who like to come together to talk about the drama, the trauma, the pain, and the hurt. It's one thing to talk about it. Don't get me wrong. It's one thing to talk about it. It's another
mhm.
thing to do something about it.
Oh yes, the
And
change.
and when we choose to talk about it, are we sharing? Sometimes we have to share like, okay, I would call my sister and do a check-in, like, okay, let me tell you about this thing that happened. And
Hmm.
I just want to make sure, is it a me problem or a their problem? And she's like, this makes no sense. It's
Hmm.
definitely a them problem. What
Hmm.
happens next? And then there are certain conversations I have to have in therapy, like, okay, this is the situation.
Right.
This. I'm trying to process it. I cannot compute. I'm trying to can. I cannot. And my therapist is equipped to
Hmm.
give me those tips, tools, and resources to help me to process or deal with or understand or get some type of clarity. So it's one thing to talk, like I said, but it's a different thing to talk and take action. And it's a different
Hmm.
thing to talk to someone who can actually help you versus we all need somebody who's there to just listen. We all need those type of people. But if what we really need to do is do the work, we need to go to somebody who can show us how to do the work.
I agree. A
And
hundred
we
percent.
need, and we have to be, I would say, uncomfortable. Nothing happens inside your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to get uncomfortable because, like I said before, I'm a recovering hyper independent person. I had to learn, yes, go to somebody. I want to shout out Brittany Claiborne. That's my sister and best friend right there. That's what I was
How
talking
did
about. I will call her like, is it a me problem? Is it a their problem? Yes, yes, Shay. I'm trying to I cannot. And Brittany can tell you I say that often. Sometimes I will start the conversation with
Hey, girl,
that. But yes, seriously though, we have to ask for help and be okay, be uncomfortable asking for the help so we can get the clarity and get the comfort that we're looking for, get the solutions that we're looking for.
yeah, and it's different when you have somebody that's on the outside. They don't know you personally, so they don't know the other person. They just know what the problem that you're presenting to them, and like, okay, let's really analyze this because sometimes I have a habit of overthinking it, or maybe it's not as emotional as I because I'm an
Yeah,
emotional person. So it's
me
just
too.
like, okay, let's really is it really that deep? Or was it that deep and I'm just being passive? Like, and it's good. And you know what I think that is so awesome now is that a lot of us realize that we need therapy. Because back then they was afraid to talk to somebody because that's that crazy white man's disease. But we have to kind of change our mindset and
Right,
say, every therapist needs a therapist. Well, they say every therapist needs a therapist, and you're a life coach. So of course,
hmm
when you're the helper, you want to help everybody. But since we're taking on everybody's burdens, you can get stressed out too. You
right.
know.
And that's one of the things I even talked about with my therapist when I first um, was able to meet her, and I asked her like, "Do you go to therapy?" Because if you don't go to therapy, I can't be with you. Like I need somebody who's walking the walk too. And so she explained to me, what her therapy looks like, outside of her practice.
Hmm.
But definitely, and what started with me was I had tried therapy off and on from 2010 until about 2016. And everyone who I was able to meet with during that time, they
Hmm.
weren't a good match for me. I was not comfortable with them. And around September 2021, I remember coming home from work. There was an unrelated work situation in my life. And I was like, I know I need to talk to a therapist. I don't have one right now. What's the next best thing? I
Hmm.
called a girlfriend who is a licensed marriage and family therapist in another state. And I was
Okay.
like, can you take me on as a client? But because of ethical reasons, she couldn't. We had a pre-existing relationship. She said, but what I can do is allow you to have a conversation with me as a friend, like we always do. And I just
Oh,
leveled with her. I
that's
leveled
beautiful.
with her and just told her everything that I wanted to discuss with the therapist. And she listened objectively. Her first recommendation was find a therapist. She
Yeah.
did give me some practical things to do in the meantime, but that was her first thing. And for me, with her being a Black woman
Hmm.
in the mental health space, I realized I was comfortable speaking with her, not only because we knew each other, but because she looked like me.
Hmm.
Everyone I tried to communicate with before did not look like me, and I didn't feel comfortable opening up. So that's one thing I prayed about when I was seeking a therapist. I was like, I would prefer if she's Black. If it's a
I,
she and she's Black.
you know what? I didn't say that, but okay. My first, I'm gonna tell you. So when I was, because I've been in therapy for 6 years now. So my first therapist, I said, I was angry and I didn't know I was angry. I didn't know why I had these explosions. Like, like, I really wanted to, like, people, of course, everybody wouldn't think that you bipolar, but I really wanted to get a professional advice of what was really wrong with my anger issues and why I was so tense and tight. And the first person I saw was a white older man. He was like 70, 80 years old. And he said, now, I never told him this. He said, "Well, you have up and down mood swings." And I said, "I never said that in my." So he was about to diagnose me as bipolar, and I was just like, "I feel like you're trying to be racist because they want to make every black person bipolar."
The angry black woman.
And I was like, "I'm not about to take no bipolar medication because I don't have up and down moods. Now I have periods of sadness, and I have
Right.
really periods of over anxiety." So he was just like, "Well, get a second opinion." And God only knew that he blessed me with a black African lady, and we clicked automatically because we look alike. So she knows the struggles of a woman and everything like that. But I tell you, even my first visit there with the intake form, I felt like 100 bricks was taken off my shoulder. I felt so free because I was holding on to so much trauma from all these years. And I didn't know that I needed to let it go. And once I did that, I was just like, I should have did this 10 years ago because this feels great. Because you can holler at somebody, you can punch a punching bag, you can go to the gym, you can run,
Mm-hmm.
but those problems are still going to be inside of you eternally.
Right.
So that I would encourage anybody, if you feel like you are overwhelmed with life, I know prayer, study, meditation, I know that helps, but talking to somebody is an extra push, and it's okay.
Yes. Yes.
But
And
everybody has to go.
that's what led me to become a mental health
Yeah,
advocate. And I was
go ahead.
sharing with you, and I actually had a totally unrelated conversation with somebody else yesterday too. But I was like, I wanted to be a mental health advocate because I realized that more Black and brown people, more Black, Indigenous, and people of color needed to know that, number one, there are resources for you available if you are willing
Mhm.
to take them. Number two, we can change the narrative and the stigma around mental health by lending our voices to the conversation. And number three, it's okay to not be okay, but it's
Yeah.
not okay to suffer in silence.
Whoa, that's powerful. That's a deep one.
And with that part about suffering in silence, we feel like sometimes that, because just like that angry black woman stigma, there's
Exactly.
also the strong black woman stigma.
Yeah.
Now, press pause. I've never heard strong Asian woman. I've never heard
Oh, that is so
strong Mexican
true.
woman. I've never heard strong Caucasian woman. And I know that there are strong women in these other groups. I know that.
Hmm.
But why is it that this phrase strong black woman has this connotation that we need to bear our burdens and don't let them show? We need to carry ourselves in a way that nobody knows what we're going through, or we're strong so we can take on this and take on that and do that. That's toxic and it's
It
killing
is.
us.
It is, and it's
It's
not
killing
cute. It's
it's
not. I don't think that it should be glorified of it. And I do think that the reality shows glorify women being an angry black woman, and that's what the clickbait. They're going to show you the clip of them arguing and yelling. They're not going to show a clip of kumbaya. Let's get together and be
I'm in my
family.
soft life era, like I'm all about soft. Like once I figured out what it was, because at first I'm like, what is soft life? Like, are
Yeah,
we
I
just
didn't even
buying?
talk like
Are we
this.
are we buying like plushy blankets? And
Yeah,
are we like chilling on soft couches and stuff? Like what is this? And then when I found out, it was like, no, we're changing the narrative. Like we want to be treated nicely, and we want to not have to yell to get our point across.
hmm,
We want to be treated with respect and kindness and gentleness and love, and we're going to treat ourselves like that
hmm.
first, and then
Yeah,
we're going to show up and teach the rest of the world how to. And I was like, that's the
yeah,
definition of soft life. Sign me up. Where do I subscribe?
yeah, yeah.
but seriously, like we have to understand that just because for generations these types of conversations weren't had is not serving the present generations well, because if mental illness is a part of the family history, sometimes people don't want to share for one reason or another, whether it's shame, whether it's they don't know how to have that conversation because nobody else ever had it. We can be the ones that change that. And that's why I advocate for mental health resources. I was first diagnosed with depression and anxiety when I was 18,
Mhm.
and I didn't know what to do with that diagnosis. I was starting college, like my life was different. Like, and I don't know if I actually had that diagnosis before it manifested at that point, and I was, officially diagnosed, or if that was like the first time it showed up. I really can't go back and say. But I will say that it took me 20 years of my life to get to
Mhm.
the point where I can have a conversation with somebody and say it, and even say it publicly. Because once again, I want people to know that mental illness is nothing to be ashamed of, and
Right.
it doesn't look the way that people think it looks.
Exactly.
When we think
The
about
narrative.
Robin Williams or
Mm.
Twitch,
Yeah.
mental illness does not look the way you think it looks.
Yeah. I know for myself personally, I lost my father to suicide at the age of 9. And I know how the effects felt of him leaving me, his mom, his family. Like, I know the effects, how it felt. And I know that I didn't want to take that same route. And I felt like if only he would have just talked to somebody, if only he would have just reached out for help. Or, and I know back then in the 90s, people were ashamed to go to therapy, but therapy could save your life.
It can.
It can save your life. And I didn't want to. I feel like that was a selfish act to do. And I couldn't do the same thing, repeat the same steps as him. So I had to talk to somebody because I just knew that I didn't want to take that same route. So as an adult, I had to change the narrative. And I can't, I'm still having a hard time overcoming the things and traumas that have happened in my life. But if I can change the narrative, then I can make life for my children better. I can make life for people around me better. I won't be such a
Right.
toxic woman or stressing people out, you know? So
Right.
I would encourage anybody if you are going through a lot and you had trauma in the past and you feel like hopeless on life, because the suicide rate has gone up during the pandemic because people are at home alone with their thoughts and embarrassed. But if you need to talk to somebody, talk to them. And because I started my self love journey, I'm able to embrace and say, I deal with depression. I deal with diabetes. I deal with anxiety. I take anxiety medication. I am been in therapy for 6 years, and I'm not embarrassed because it's
Right.
how we live. So why should I
Yeah.
be embarrassed of it? And you
It,
can't
it,
take that away from that's something that's bringing me up and making me a better person. Gonna make me
that
feel
part.
better. Yeah,
That part. And to that note, I know sometimes people say things like, check on your strong friends.
exactly.
Or I want to say it's twofold. First of all, don't check on just your strong friends. Check on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Check on everybody. And let's check on each other.
Like you
Um,
said, he was a funny guy.
yeah. Let's check on each other. So not just your strong friends. Everybody check on everybody else. If I'm checking on this one and that one checking on the other one, then we all checking in. And number two, sometimes people say that they didn't know who to talk to, so they didn't have a conversation with somebody because
Mm-hmm.
they didn't, they don't know how to say what's going on. They may
Mm-hmm.
not be able to verbalize it, or they don't know how other people will react. And
Mm-hmm.
especially if they are having to go to a family member or a friend, then now they have to be vulnerable and they're not comfortable with that. And so they may find an alternative,
Mm-hmm.
sadly. And then also on the other part of it is they may know that they need to talk to somebody like a therapist or their doctor, but again, they don't know how to express it. They can't find the words. They don't know how to communicate it. And what I want all of us to do is learn what are the signs of someone having a mental health crisis
Mm-hmm.
and how to speak to that person and how not to speak to that person,
Mm-hmm.
how to support that person to help them get the help because they may not understand um, exactly what's happening with them, but they just know something's off.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have also picked up on that and just say, hey, look, I'm checking in, I'm concerned about you. Let's Can I do something with you or for you? And sometimes what they don't want to do is talk. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to honor that. And
Mm-hmm.
just be there with them. Sometimes they don't want to talk. They don't know how to say what's going on, but it's
Mhm.
deep and it's heavy. And they're trying to carry it, they're trying to bear it. They just need to know that you are there and that you're in their corner.
Mhm.
Um, and you can stay with them and help them get the help. Oftentimes people say, well, just talk to me, let me know. They don't know how to say it, so they don't want to talk to you, or
Mhm.
they can't put it into words.
Mhm.
So we have to learn and educate ourselves on what to say, what not to say, how to provide help, what are the signs, and how to not dismiss a comment. They may tell you,
Exactly.
they may
And
have told
oh,
you, but you dismissed it or thought it was a joke, thought they were playing. So we have to be aware, and it starts with educating ourselves. And
mhm.
we talked about it. Prayer is wonderful. Reading the Bible is great. Having your faith as a part of your journey and how you live your life is awesome. But if you are a person of the Christian faith, you know that Jesus said, "Let the ailing seek a physician." So
Yes. Mhm.
sometimes we have to receive medical attention or
Mhm.
help from other professionals in order to get the treatment that we need. So,
Exactly.
and there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
So when it comes to removing the stigma, sometimes it includes us as individuals removing the stigma for ourselves, and that's how we bring about more change, individual by individual.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you said, that if I didn't start therapy, I couldn't see the red flags in other people. But
Mhm.
now that my antennas are up and I've been taught and I've been trained and I have weekly sessions,
Oh yeah,
now I'll be like, it's like you can be a therapist now because you see things that you used to do, or you see
you
how you
know
used
what?
to act. It's like, then you got something go. Like maybe you should talk to somebody, or if you see somebody always stressing out or whatever, it'd be like, man, I just wish you would start therapy because you would just feel better. You would react differently. You wouldn't react over a washcloth or or something
Yeah.
small.
And sometimes we just have to let our people know, let our friends, our loved ones say, look, I love you, but I'm not your therapist. I can help you find one.
Yeah,
Because sometimes that's what they really need, but they're coming to you instead because you're listening. And there's nothing wrong with listening, but we have to know what we can and cannot handle and what is and is not in our wheelhouse. For example, I know I'm not a plumber. Okay. I know that. I know that if there's a plumbing issue, I'm going to ask my husband, can we call a plumber, somebody who knows this, so we can get it done? Same thing with a vehicle. I'm not a mechanic. I cannot figure out why the vehicle won't do what it's supposed to be doing. It's not in my wheelhouse, but I will call someone. So the same thing when it comes to our loved ones, our family, our friends, our coworkers, our whoever. Like, you know what? I love being here and I love supporting you, but this particular thing is outside of my wheelhouse. Let me work with you on helping you find the tools, resources, and people that you need so that you can get this taken care of. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if I gotta fix the plumbing or if I gotta fix the vehicle, it's gonna be in worse condition. So the
hmm
same thing when it comes to some of these other things in life, we these other professions exist so that we can utilize them
exactly,
and
exactly.
go get it. Go get
You
it.
can't DIY everything all the time and do it yourself.
Right.
We have to
Right.
really spend some money and get some stuff done. Everybody wants to
Yeah.
save a buck and really don't want to get stuff done, but sometimes you do if it's necessary to benefit your life. Um,
Exactly.
with that being said, when you've done your classes and your coaching sessions, what is one of the biggest problems that you have seen through your how long have you been life coaching? You said a year?
Yeah, almost a year now.
Yeah. What is one of the
Um,
biggest problems you've seen during these sessions?
a lot of times people, it goes back to what we're already talking about. They have issues with self-confidence or self-love, that they have internal belief barriers or limiting beliefs that they hang on to. So a limiting belief is a thought that you have that places limits on what you're capable of. For example, you may have, it's New Year's, so I'll start with the weight loss example because a lot of people are thinking about that this time of year. So, for example, if somebody says, "I'm going to lose 50 pounds this year," then their limiting belief could be, are you really going to do that? Because
And
you
that's
have
mine.
started and stopped so many diets. You still haven't lost the weight. You keep gaining and losing the same 25 pounds. That's a limiting belief. So we work together on coming up with affirmations and power statements, even going through exercises with emotional freedom technique tapping so that they can reprocess those old negative false beliefs and start to rewire their brain and the cells in their body in order to believe what they are affirming. And even with creating affirmations that allow them to work through those limiting beliefs. For example, if a person says, "I'm going to earn $1 million," but they have no evidence that they're capable of it, their brain can easily say, "No, you're not. You're going to keep earning the same salary you've been earning, which is way below $1 million." But
Mm,
if we create affirmations in a way that, and I'm not going to tell you on this live because that's something I can coach you about, outside of the live in one-on-one, if that's something you want to work through. So, but we create affirmations in the coaching to where it allows their brain to begin to agree
mm-hmm.
with what they're telling themselves and then how to take actions on those beliefs and actually manifest that. It's one thing to say affirmations, it's one thing to tell yourself certain things, but it's another thing to do the action that helps to build that belief so that you can lose that 50 pounds, so you can earn that $1 million or do whatever else you set as a goal.
Mm. Sometimes, even when I had therapy this morning, sometimes it's just changing the mindset. And if you've been having this mindset for so long, and this is like hard to switch, it's like you said, you got to be the adult version of yourself. You was the kid version. Now you have to control your narrative as an adult, and
Hmm.
change your mindset is the start of it. And it can be, I'm speaking for myself personally, it can be so hard to do. Like, get out of that negative mindset. Like, okay, maybe you need to take a test, or maybe you need to do this, and maybe you haven't had good success when you took the first test,
Right.
or, so we have to learn how to do that. And it takes so much practice and work. And I think that a lot of people fail times to put into that work on their self. And you got
Right.
to really, and when you on a self love journey, you have to really set aside time for yourself so you can
You
become
do.
a better person. Because scheduling is hard, it's 24 hours in a day. Do you use those 24 hours properly? You know?
Yeah. And the other thing I noticed as I was working with people too is for them seeing the value of self-care, whether it's reprogramming how they think, having those mindset shifts, going to therapy, going to work out, reading a book, going to coaching, um, communicating with like-minded women, sometimes just helping them to realize the value in that
Mm-hmm.
because they may have received external messages that help them to create the internal messages that they're not worth it, that
Mm-hmm.
they don't deserve it, they can't have it, they can't do it, they can't be it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those limiting beliefs and negative thoughts they have didn't originate with them, but because of the environment around them. And when I say environment, it could be location, it could be the people in their lives, at that job, in
Yeah.
their homes, in these other places, the friendships they may have had up until that point. So when it comes to going through this, sometimes people deal with pushback from others.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you think you're better than us because
Exactly.
XYZ. No, first of all, you're a bad mind reader because I don't think that.
You a bad man. I like that one.
But seriously, those are just, some of the things I've noticed, sometimes they didn't create the problems with their self image, self worth, self confidence, self love. But as a result of the external factors, especially if it started earlier in life and it carry on into adulthood, now they have to go back and deprogram that.
Exactly. Exactly. I agree. So we have covered a lot. It's almost hour, almost an hour. And self care is an umbrella of a list of things. It's boundaries. It's a mindset. It's scheduling. It's making time. It's looking at yourself in the mirror. It's affirmations. The list can go on and on and on. When we're talking about making
Yes.
time for self care and learning self care, it's just like it's really a lifestyle change that you have to develop. So before you started your self love journey, and if you could talk to your 15-year-old self, what would you tell your 15-year-old self?
Okay, so my 15-year-old self existed in the 99 and 2000 time period,
Mm-hmm.
literally. So
Yeah.
going back to that time period, I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I noticed that there were certain cliques, people that I used to be close with, perhaps in elementary or middle school, we weren't friends. And I was just trying to figure out who I was at that age and like what were my interests. And I had to get comfortable with not fitting in certain areas of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could go back and talk to my 15-year-old self, I would let her know that it's okay to be different. It's okay to want the things you want or want to achieve the things you want to achieve. And I would let her know that she's going to get to that point where she's able to do the things that she wants to do, because I was wildly creative, still am. But at
Mm-hmm.
that age, I would come up with ideas for short stories. I was writing songs. I was writing poetry. I
Mm-hmm.
could be sitting in class and get distracted by my own thoughts and write down an idea for a song, sometimes even write the whole song
Mm-hmm.
in class, and then go like get out of that and come back into that. I had a book, a binder rather, filled with all these loose loose leaf sheets of things I had written, and I would
Mm-hmm.
tell myself that she needs to publish those things, figure out how to get it done. I would tell her the importance of her own self worth and self esteem. And I would affirm her and just love her, you know, because that's really what she needed at 15. And I would also let her know that she needs to enjoy being a teenager because she will be an adult sooner than later. I was
Mm-hmm.
one of those people in childhood and through my teen years who was viewed as mature for my age. Now, I was still a young person. I still did like young people things, teenage things. I made mistakes and all of that. It was a part of growing up. But I was also mature for my age, so to speak. So I would remind myself to have some fun as a teenager because once you are a full fledged adult, you have to behave and act accordingly. And at 15, you know, you're not quite there yet. So enjoy the process.
Yeah, I agree. What would I tell my 15-year-old self? I would tell myself that it's okay to be yourself. Don't be embarrassed to be yourself. I was so embarrassed of myself for so long. Hence, that's why I created Brown Girls Embrace. Um, I was just embarrassed of being brown skinned. I was embarrassed that I had diabetes. I was embarrassed of a lot of different things. And I would tell myself, it's okay to be yourself. And like you, I used to do a lot of poetry, and they were deep poetry, poems. And they would be so angry. It was like, dark skinned child, you were this. And people would laugh, like, why are you so, aggressive? Or why are you so mad? But I would continue to keep doing it, and I wouldn't let what other people say deter me from what I'm doing because now I'm mad that I stopped writing. If I can go back and look at those poems that I was writing when I was 15 and today at 33, I'd be like, dang, you was going through it. But yeah, that's what I would tell myself. And for the last question, we're going to wrap it up. Where can everybody find you on all your different platforms?
All right. So you can find me at the same handle that you see as my name here on this video at Martita Robbins. That's Mart as in Tom, IT as in Tom, Robb as in boy, INS. And I'm also relaunching my blog slash website pretty soon. And it'll be like it appears on my shirt, Ask Martita maritarobbins.com. But if you find me, you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Marita Robbins.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming and joining me tonight. We enjoy talking
Thank you
to you.
for having me.
Yes, like I said, the Queen's Talk is where we honor women who are on their self-love journey. So, well, I'm gonna commend you for starting because I know it's not easy to do to change your old ways and to start your self-love journey. So thank you. And thank you for encouraging everybody and being even encouraging to me from just talking to you tonight. It was such a powerful conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I enjoyed being in your space. I hope we get to connect once
Yes,
again.
we
This
definitely
was this was an amazing opportunity. I also want to take a moment to thank everyone who jumped
yes,
in
thank
and was lighting up those comments. I'm going to go back and look at those comments because I can't
you.
talk and read at the same time. But I'm going to go back and make sure that I get a chance to hang out with our people in the comments. I appreciate you all joining us tonight,
Yeah.
as well as those of you who are watching or listening to the replay later.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, everybody, thank you for joining and have a good night.